So you use MCP, agent skills, A2A protocol and still sleep well at night? In this video, let's look at the latest state of AI security 2026 from Cisco. It's a summary report of attacks that happened over the last year, some critical vulnerabilities discovered, a ton of MCP stuff, specific types of attacks which Cisco finds most worrisome at the moment, latest policies, tools, threat actors, and so on. The report is 30 pages long, the link is in the description, and I've split it into 6 sections. The first one is a list of most interesting exploits from the last year. The report states that we have entered AI-driven era, which comes with some new challenges. And the biggest issue is that organizations are now rushed into integrating large language models and overall AI workflows into the software, ignoring all the traditional security vetting processes in favor of speed. So Agentic AI gave attackers a couple of new superpowers. First of all, it allowed them to scale their attacks because they now don't have the human bottlenecks to rely on human effort. They can delegate a lot of work to Agentic AI. Then we also have those unsecured protocols or holes in the protocols, which we have now with Agentic flows, and that gives attackers access to the system. They mediate trust at the system boundary, which gives them a possibility to create those attacks which are durable and difficult to detect. Among the types of the attacks, they mentioned several in this report. The first group is the prompt injections. So the prompt injections didn't go away, however much we tried to fix that. It feels that we became smarter understanding prompt injections and eliminating them to some extent, but attackers became smarter at making those prompt injections even more sophisticated. So yeah, we are still susceptible to those attacks. This report in particular mentions exfiltration of proprietary intellectual property without that traditional malware writing process. That now attack can be executed at the victim's endpoint way easier. And they give an example of GitHub MCP server over here. They're going to look more at overall MCP vulnerabilities of that particular attack later, but here they mentioned that yes, there was an MCP server which actually allowed to hijack user agent by using that GitHub server and the prompt injection payload. The next big issue, as I mentioned, is overall fragility of the AI supply chain. So here they mentioned that as few as 250 poison documents injected into training data can compromise the safety of LLMs, regardless of parameter size. And they also mentioned that what makes it particularly troubling is that this poisoning doesn't really degrade models' general performance behavior. So you will not even notice that your model has the mind of its own because it will be very, very difficult to detect. Another issue which they mentioned is that because the model is usually packaged in that executable container, when the model is loaded, it can actually execute arbitrary code and therefore bring some malware into your system. On top of it, because we often make some changes to the model, so we quantize them, we merge them, we fine-tune them by some automated system. If there was some tampering with the model, you might not realize it at which point of time the tampering was happening, because many of the benchmarks will not detect that kind of issue. So as the risk, as I mentioned, poison fine-tuning data, malicious fine-tuning, model backdoors, and model drifts and unintended misalignments. Next, they go after the agent skills, and they state that they analyzed 31,000 agent skills, and 26% of those contain at least one vulnerability. That was either the result of some poor design or it was intentionally malicious. Then they mention threats such as agent impersonations and agent session smuggling. They give an example here of a financial assistant agent, which instead of doing a market research, additionally sends extra prompt, extra hidden instructions to the financial agents to conduct a trade. It returns a normal response back to whoever called that a financial assistant agent, but behind the scenes triggers some extra action which goes against the interests of the original caller. They do, of course, mention here that issue which Anthropic ran into last year when they discovered that Claude is being used for cyber-espionage, where the malicious actors, they relied in 80 to 90% on using AI for the attack, and human just served the giving strategic directions. And that showed that those AI agents can help significantly in scaling up and speeding up the attack and being those tireless employees in the attack chain. And the key message which they leave at the end of this section is that now we face the reality that offensive AI can outpace defenses in the absence of a proper AI security strategy. And I have no idea who phrases stuff like this, probably AI, but how I understand this is that whether you are pro using AI or contra using AI, sadly, to deal with AI attacks, you will have to use AI for defense. Then they move to MCP. Do you use MCP? Who doesn't? They state that rapid adoption outpaces the security maturity of the adopters of the protocol, which led to a number of different problems. The examples which they give, the first one actually didn't really happen. It's just like was a proof of concept. But tool poisoning in WhatsApp, which silently exfiltrates an entire WhatsApp chat history by abusing tool descriptors. Then the next one, those are real ones, remote code execution, and they found a tool which is called MCP remote, which allowed to execute arbitrary shell commands on the user's computer, allowing the attacker to steal secrets, credentials, files, and so on. So this particular vulnerability has been fixed, but you can imagine that we probably will have more like issues like this which are not yet found. Then overprivileged and unauthorized access to on the rise. So this mentions a couple of vulnerabilities, and there were some flaws such as symbolic links to trick the tool into reading or writing files outside of an allowed directory, which granted unauthorized access to the entire host file system. This is pretty scary. Then there was a supply chain attack where they talk about a fake MCP server, postmark, which was published on the NPM registry, and it was designed to look like an official integration with the postmark email service, but it kind of did some extra step. It was sending a blind carbon copy of every email to extra controlled address. The next section is threat actors, and here they in particular mention state-sponsored threat actors. And they mention several different countries. The first one is China. They use AI to craft social engineering and develop exploits. Russian Federation uses AI for deepfakes and automated propaganda, as well as to facilitate cyber operations. Next one is Democratic People's Republic of Korea, where they use AI to create deepfake job applicant profiles to secure jobs worldwide. Next one is Iran, which uses AI to speed up the way how they process data, which comes from different sources such as hijacked CCTV feeds, to provide, for example, real-time battle damage assessment and so on. So overall, they state that AI-enabled cyber threats will continue to be top global organizational risk. The next section of this report, which is called The Path Ahead, I find one of the most interesting out of this report. So it's one page which lists 3 types of attacks or incidents which the creators of this report consider to be one of the most worrisome events which will have a huge impact on the whole industry. The first one is a coordinated mass supply chain attack where a widely used AI library or foundation model is compromised at the source. So some kind of a SolarWinds of AI. And they state here a potential type of attack is where there will be a poisoned update to tens of thousands of corporate AI systems simultaneously. So threat actors will successfully implant dormant backdoors across industries. The second one I would call an attack agent as a service. So here they anticipate the emergence of automated or custom agentic services on the dark web that can be rented to perform end-to-end hacks. So you, or probably not you, but someone else, unskilled criminal can provide a target URL and the agent would autonomously handle scanning, phishing, and exploitation. And the last one among those top worries is the vector embedding attack. So to target models' memory. And as an example here, they suggest that there is a possibility to poison the vector databases that serves as a long-term memory for retrieval augmented generation systems. So by injecting malicious vectors, they can manipulate the model's retrieval process, which is actually quite logical. And the last one, I wouldn't be surprised if it's already somewhere being used. When it comes to understanding AI risk and overall safety and security framework, they mentioned that they put effort into 5 design elements. So first one is integrating of threats and harms. So they look at AI security and AI safety as inseparable concepts. Next one is AI lifecycle awareness, where security consideration during different stages of using or building models is quite different. So vulnerabilities that are irrelevant during model development may become critical once the model gains access to tooling. So that's why the whole AI lifecycle awareness and how those issues at different points of the cycle can affect the end result is important. Then multi-agent orchestration. Here they focus on the inter-agent communication protocols, shared memory architectures, and collaborative decision-making processes. Then they look at multimodality considerations where the data which we have, it's not only text. It can be images, can be audio, can be embedded signals in sensor data, code snippets, and so on. And that types of content will have different vulnerabilities. There can be different threats that can manifest in different types of those modalities. So it's quite important to not only focus on the textual content, but all kind of other models of the data which we have. And the final one, an audience-aware security compass. They also give us a glimpse into their AI security framework, where they have objectives, techniques, sub-techniques, procedures, and then they split. They have 19 attacker objectives, 150 techniques and sub-techniques, They have 25 categories of harmful content. They also have some defense open source tools for MCP and A2A. After that, they go into AI policy landscape, where they focus on the changes in the policies of United States, European Union, and other countries. The phrase which I found to be concerning but also kind of reflecting on what we see around the world is that United States under a new administration is attempting to create an environment that prioritizes innovation over regulation, pivoting away from more stringent safety frameworks. They go into detail of that particular statement as well as describe the policies of European Union. In the next section, they looked at some tools that they use or they developed at Cisco. The first one is Agentic skill scanner. Here they showed that when you're using tools such as OpenClaw, which allows you to use agents to complete some operations on your computer, such as booking flights or dinner reservations, you might run into accidentally using agents which will either exfiltrate your data or do something wrong on your behalf. And then you need to be aware of those threats. But more interestingly, they actually showed some analysis done on multi-turn jailbreak attacks. This is where they did a comparative security assessment of 8 popular open-weight large language models. So they provide us a list of those models. And what they did, they actually compared the success rates, whether you are trying to jailbreak from the single conversation or like short, I don't know how many turns they did, or this multi-turn jailbreak approach. And here they showed that with a multi-turn attack, it has significantly higher success rate, going up to 93%. I would take all the numbers with a grain of salt, to be honest, because they're making their point. Of course, they would be using all the data which strongly supports their point of view. However, I still feel that the wind is in that direction, so I feel this is actually pretty interesting outcome. So with a single turn conversation, the attack surface is pretty low, so the attack success is pretty low. It's only like, for example, 22% for Mistral Large 2, 6% for OpenAI GPT OSS, so it's not that bad. But when we talk about longer conversation, developing of that conversation, multi-turn jailbreak attack, it goes up to 92%, and then depending on the model, it is either more successful or less. Next, they talk about 2 tools, MCP scanner and A2A scanner, developed at Cisco, and both are open source and both are useful to detect vulnerabilities, for example, in MCP servers or in A2A setup by looking at pattern matching with detection signatures, protocol validation with specification compliance, behavioral analysis with heuristics, runtime testing with an endpoint analyzer, and semantic interpretation with an LLM analyzer. Then they mention a tool to scan Python pickle files, which is used for machine learning model files, and they have a security risk because those files can execute arbitrary code when loaded, so they have the scanning tool. And finally, they talk about a SecureBERT 2.0 model, which is a language model designed specifically for the cybersecurity domain. And that is it. So in the end, it was 28 pages and not 30. Still, it was quite dense, not too much text, but quite a lot of information, and also they have lots of links which you can use to read the interesting for you parts in more detail. And if by any chance it makes you double check that MCP server you are about to use, I call it a success.